So to continue our talk about repeated measures or within groups, ANOVA, here we have finicky Fred who hates everything. And he is in every condition just like we talked about. Each person ends up being in each treatment. Sid Sour Patch, who loves sour things, also tasted everything and gave a rating. Grapefruit juice was 5, cola was 5, and he didn't like cod liver oil. He gave that a 0. We have Sweet Tooth Sally. She really likes the taste of sugar. She gave a 1 to grapefruit juice. She rated cola highly, a 9, and hated cod liver oil, a 0. We had a seal in our study who loves fish, and he rated cod liver oil a 3. It was rancid, so he didn't love it, but he liked it better than everyone else. And Mikey, from those commercials long ago, if you're old enough to remember, who likes everything, rated everything highly except the rancid cod liver oil. He still didn't give it a 0, though. So we have here 3 treatment groups. And at the bottom, we can put the sums and the means, just like with a between subjects design. But look over here in column F. We can also, for each subject, get a total score and a mean for that subject's ratings. So for Finicky Thread, add up his scores and you'll get 4 and divide by how many? 4 divided by 3 is 1.33. Now, I want you to get a mean just like this for each person. Pause the video now and get all the means, get a different mean. Most of them will be different for each person in the study. And then unpause it and see if you got it right. And then also compute the grand mean. And I'm also going to have you compute the mean for cod liver oil. And here's the total for cod liver oil. Pause it, see if you get it right. So for the cod liver oil treatment, it was 5 divided by 5 or 1. That's the mean for cod liver oil. And if you got the data right for Sid Sour Patch, 5 and 5 is 10. For Sweet Tooth Sally, 1 and 9 is 10. For the seal, his total was 5. And for Mikey, 8 and 10 and 2 is 20. So those are the totals, and you're going to make them into a mean by dividing by 3. 10 over 3. If you did it right, it comes to 3.33. Now do these calculations. Don't just sit like a lump. You don't want to be making your mistakes for the first time on the final exam. Figure out what your mistakes are now by working the math, and that way you can mess it up now when it won't cost you points, rather than on the final when it will cost you points. So the seal had 5 divided by 3, and Mikey, 2 divided by 3, or 20 divided by 3, is 6.6667. For each person here, we have a mean that reflects, sort of on average, how they tended to rate the drinks. And then we'll get the grand mean. You add up all the scores, divide by 15, and you would be then doing 49 divided by 15. And if you did it right, you get 3.267 for the grand mean. Now, this next part, the next 2 parts, you already know how to do because it's just like what you know to do for a between groups ANOVA. First, I want you to pause the video and get total deviation scores. Now, you're going to need to do what I've done and list the treatment in the left-hand column and then the score. So take the grapefruit scores and put them down here where they go and label everything. Then the cola ones, and label whose it is and what treatment it is. They're on the left like I have it. Cod liver oil. So take the scores so you can then work with them without getting confused. Don't make yourself look stuff up because you're just going to add error to your calculations. Now do total deviation scores. You know how to do this already. This is the score minus the grand. And then I want you to square them. You know how to do an accuracy check already. Do your accuracy check. And then I want you to unpause it and see how you did. Again, this is practice for the final. Do this practice. Don't just sit here and watch. Figure out what your weaknesses are so you won't make the mistakes when it's actually worth points to you. So, Fred, when he got grapefruit juice, gave a score of 1, minus the grand is negative 2.267. Now do it for everybody. And you're just taking their score minus 3.267 in every case. So if you're a spreadsheet person, you would say equals that cell minus 3.267. I'm just going to copy the formula because I can. That's why I recommend using a spreadsheet. You can use your calculator if you want, but this is way quicker. You know your accuracy check. I certainly hope so by now. Add up deviations. What do deviations always add to? Is that about 0? There's some rounding error, but yeah, it's about 0. So I think we did this right. Square them, and you will get a sum of scores total of 162.9, etc. Now this next part you also know how to do. Just pretend these were 3 different groups. They're 3 different treatments, not 3 different groups. But do the same thing you would do for a one-way ANOVA. Make a group between groups. In this case, it's more like between treatment deviation score. That is, you're going to take the treatment mean, which for grapefruit juice is 3 minus the grand. 3 minus 3.267. So what I'm doing here is I'm just putting all the treatment means. Okay, so again, I hope that you did the calculations right. There's your accuracy check. The treatment deviations add to about 0, and sum of squares for the treatment is 58.13. Now this should all be familiar because you already know how to do this from doing a between groups one-way ANOVA. So here's the new part. The new part is now we're going to take the deviation of each subject mean from the grand to figure out how far each person habitually falls from the grand. So now we're figuring out what kind of variability comes from each person's stable personality and other stable characteristics. And we're doing this really so we can throw it away. So you have already calculated a mean for each subject. And if you look up, we'll scroll up a little bit so you can see it. The subject mean for Finicky Fred was 1.33. So in his row, we're just going to put everybody's mean here. Now I want you to put all the means, pause it, see if you did it right. Again, this is practice. Don't just sit here. You do the math. You'll be glad you did when you get to the final exam. So for Fred, it's 1.333 is his subject mean. And then for Sid Sour Patch, it was 3.33 repeating, and for Sally, the same one. And a seal had a subject mean of 1.666, etc. Okay? So see if you get them right. Again, you pause it and you make sure and see how you did, because if you didn't do it right, you're going to want to make a note in your list of steps to use during the final exam. Okay, so when the people got grapefruit juice, you put in the group means, and then here's the deal. You're going to put in, not the group means, the subject means. You use the same subject means because it's the same subject each time, right? Even though it's a different treatment that they're in. So you're sort of repeating these. And then you make it into a deviation. Again, I want you to pause it. The deviation is going to be the subject mean minus the grand. So I'll do this first one with you. This is Finicky Fred's mean minus 3.267. Now do all of them, pause it, come back and see if you did it right. And see if you get them all correct. And again, you know how to do an accuracy check. These deviations you're going to make should add to about 0. So let me do a formula if you're a spreadsheet person. In case you did it wrong, you'll see how it was done right. It would be the subject mean minus 3.267 minus the grand. And now I'm just going to copy the formula and paste. Now let's see if we did it right. Do they add to 0? Yes, about 0. There's a little rounding error. And then we have squares of the subject variability. Now, really the reason we computed this is we're going to throw it away. We're not actually going to analyze for each person and how they differ. We don't care. And in the next video, we have one more kind of variability to compute, and it's kind of new. It is going to be mean squares within with this kind of variability tossed out. It's going to be the total minus everything we've done so far. Go to the next video for that.